Hello, everyone. My name is Lian Liu. I am a child and adolescent psychologist at Nemours Children's Health. I'm on the clinical child and community psychology team, primarily work with adolescents who experience mood disorders, high-risk behaviors like self-harm, suicidal ideation. I also do the comprehensive DBT. I'm part of that team at Nemours. And my study that I am hopefully getting funded for, that I am applying for things for, it's called Adapting DBT-A, so DBT for Adolescents for Minoritized Youth in Juvenile Justice, examining the effectiveness of DBT-A for justice-involved youth in Delaware. So just a little bit of research background. Justice-involved youth have a high rate of cycling back into the justice system. The word for that is recidivism. In some reports done by the internal statistics groups in Delaware government, it's as high as 81%. So that's pretty high. Overall, there has been historically concerns about the high rates of gun violence in Delaware, and it does particularly affect youth of color, particularly males. The lack of comprehensive therapeutic treatment that addresses the multiple interacting factors leading to this reoffense is noted, and some of these interacting factors include substance use, behavioral dysregulation, and trauma, and work with a diverse group of youth for which many therapeutic interventions are maybe not normed on or widely studied to see if it's in fact effective, but are being used for them. So a lot of times interventions may only address the substance use, or it only addresses processing trauma, or it only addresses behavioral issues, but not something that maybe targets all of them or is a skill that could be used in all of these areas. And so my interest is looking at DBT-A, or dialectical behavior therapy, adapted for adolescents, to see if it could address all of these areas. It is originally used to treat dysregulation, was developed by Marsha Linehan for adults who have borderline personality disorder, but has been widely used now with adolescents at Nemours. We have a comprehensive DBT-A program for adolescents, and the fact that it targets dysregulation is kind of appropriate for juvenile justice youth who have difficulty with emotion regulation, who maybe have difficulty with impulsivity, behavioral dysregulation, so maybe externalizing behaviors, which is an easier target for DBT than internalizing behavior sometimes. It is a target. It has had substance use integrated in it before. There is research on DBT adapted for substance use disorders. It's been implemented previously in the literature for juvenile justice settings, but it's never been used, as far as I'm aware, in any of our Delaware juvenile justice settings. And there's a continued discussion on how DBT could be adapted for diverse populations. So originally it was adapted for white women primarily, but has since been used with a diversity of people across many different settings. And so it's important to make sure that there's literature indicating the intervention is appropriate for everyone and whether or not it should be adapted to be more appropriate or more effective. So the aims of this particular study at this point is first just feasibility. Like, can I implement a DBT program at a juvenile justice facility in Delaware? There's a lot of logistics to starting a new therapeutic program in any setting, but particularly in juvenile justice settings. My target setting facility is the Ferris School, which is an all-boys detention center in Delaware. And so some aims include the programmatic review. So what are the barriers to implementing this? What kind of trainings are necessary in order to help staff deliver this intervention appropriately and to fidelity, and evaluating adherence to implementation once it's done. So feasibility initially are the aims. And then secondary to that, also developing a treatment protocol for DBT-A that adapts some of these multiple factors, like substance use. It's been adapted before into DBT, but not necessarily standardized across all substance use settings, and making sure our handouts and materials within the manual are appropriate for this population. Boys, adolescents, primarily children of color, from specific regions in this country. And then secondary aim is collecting data on measures of mental health, dysregulation, disciplinary referrals, and then again, staff's adherence to the treatment model. So collecting this initial data for use in future data reporting. So methodology, the first thing is that I'm going to be using a consolidated framework for implementation research developed by Dom Schroeder et al. And this will be the theoretical framework for the study to guide us in how to implement this initial treatment. And I will be applying for the 2-year community engaged Excel CTR. So I have a plan for each year. The first year will be focused on buy-in with staff, training of staff, preparing for the pilot by consulting with staff at Ferris, administration, as well as the people who work on the milieu, meaning directly with the kids, and consulting with experts to develop the manual so that it is ready for use in the second year, where then a skills group will be piloted. So DBT typically has multiple components, the primary of which is a group therapy and individual therapy. So I would start with the group therapy and train the staff at the facility to then reinforce the skills they're learning in group therapy through coaching on the day-to-day. And I will be collecting data during this time while the results and effectiveness is not the primary goal. I will still be collecting data at the beginning, middle, and end to still track effectiveness and see are there any differences between subjects model study. And all participants are coming from Ferris, which is the maximum security boys detention center in Delaware. It is the only one that we have that's maximum security. Get the methods. Click. Okay. And so some expected outcomes. So primary outcomes, positive staff buy-in through the model that we're using, fidelity to the treatment guidelines, and a standardized adapted manual that results from that. And then secondary outcomes that we will look at, but not primary aims of the intervention at this current stage, but looking at whether emotion regulation does improve for this first initial class of students going through the DBT-A group, if there are symptoms of reduced anxiety and depression, and then whether or not these students have fewer disciplinary referrals while they are there at Ferris. So that's the gist of it. Here are my references, and thank you.